right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, Bahasham, Rakakadash. I want to give double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. This is your fellow servant, Rokayer from the GMS Orlando camp, coming at you with another impromptu lesson, another in transit. And as you see from the title, I just want to do, a little land back off of the elder Abar Yahweh from Hawaii. One of his recent videos going into how the truth is so widespread, which is one of the phenomenons spoken about in Habakkuk, the first chapter. When the Lord said that he will work a work in our days, which none will believe, though it be told them, roughly paraphrasing. And one of those wondrous works is the name of the Lord, the vibration of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, being spread throughout the four corners of the earth. Because at one point in time, the vibration of Yahweh and Yahweh Shai wasn't as prevalent as it is today. Nowadays, the Hebrew Israelites in itself is a household name. It's a household topic. It's spreading like wildfire, and that's all according to prophecy. We are living in the midst of prophecy popping off so frequently that at this point it's a part of everyone's reality. At one point in time, the Hebrew Israelites were, a little small sect in the corner of New York, with the elders and apostles and their elders. It was a small thing that was taking place in a corner of Babylon the Great. But the Lord has allowed his vibration in the truth and the gospel itself to spread wide, through the unicorn, all right, and ultimately through the faith of the remnant, being stirred back up by the hearing of the words of the Lord, because the Lord said that his sheep will hear his voice, whithersoever they go. And as the sheep has been scattered, as the word of the Lord has went forth, all right, whether it be on the highways and byways, or whether it be on the internet highways and byways, the vibration of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai has been pushed. And through that vibration being pushed, it's stuck. It's stuck to certain households, and now it's starting to overtake certain households, man. It's really becoming widespread, a household topic. And I can attest to the elders, sentiment, because, just recently, today, the woman in my life, she texted me and told me that one of her co-workers married an Israelite. And they were having that whole conversation at work about, entry-level Israelite topics. Once you first find out about the truth, you got Jakes that's, all black, and all that kind of stuff, which we understand that the truth has expanded far beyond just that small level of understanding. You have Israelite foreigners who may look like Filipinos. You have Israelite foreigners who may look Cambodian. But it's all according to the Spirit, ultimately in these latter days, that the Lord is resurrecting within the remnant. And that could be within a vessel that looks like a so-called white man. But it's all according to the Spirit. That's why we preach the word. We've been sent to preach the word and not to divide the Lord's sheep. All right, the division comes through the word of the Lord being preached in the spirit of Yahweh Shai. That's how the division takes place. But nevertheless, we've been sent to preach the word and to herald the second coming of Yahweh Shai. And through that office, the world has been shaken up. The world has been turned, right side up in a sense. And now, the Hebrew Israelites are a household topic. Just speaking for brothers, individually, as an individual, your family in itself has been transformed, through this word. Because as we've received the word ourselves, we've been transformed by the word. We've separated ourselves from different family functions, from different family gatherings, all for the sake of growth in Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, in this truth. And as we separated ourselves and we've grown through the Spirit, our family members are able to see that. You know, they see it, they pick up on it. And at first, it's a huge pushback. You know, they don't understand it. You know, they don't understand why, you know, you're removing yourself, why you're not available like you used to be. You know, why you separate yourself from certain, why you have certain dietary restrictions. You know, why you separate yourself from certain functions and certain, you know, happenings. But as you progress in the truth, you know, and as the Spirit of the Lord sups with you and you continue to gain in wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and application, you know, and as your life is transformed as a result, then they start to look at the man that you're becoming. You know, they start to look at the true fruits of this truth and how it's maneuvering and how it's working in you. Because brothers conduct themselves like ancient kings, you know, like ancient men, like ancient warriors and priests, you know, and judges. That's how we conduct ourselves in the world when we're amongst people, you know, not just on camera. And as that example is seen, our families are seeing that light. You know, whether they agree with it or not, you know, you got 2/3, you know, you still got 2/3 family members, you know, that are going to ultimately, you know, rebel against the Spirit of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua regardless. But nonetheless, our family members see, you know, your so-called relatives or so-called family, they see the fruit of the transformation as the Spirit of Yahushua has entered into us. You know, and a lot of them are starting to ask questions. A lot of them are starting to see the reality that's been painted in the scriptures. Because that's what it is. The scriptures are a reality to play out. It's like, you know, somebody was calling me just in the middle of me trying to do a lesson, you know what I'm saying? But they see that fruit, and like it says in Matthew the 5th chapter, all right, we were sent as lights into the world, all right, and as that light shines, you know, the remnant who may be scattered, who may have not believed at one point in time, is now being gathered all through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, and the light that is radiating off of brothers, you know, off of, you know, your walk. And that's why the topic of Hebrew Israelites and the topic of Yahweh Yahushua is so widespread in the earth. Because the remnant, you know, had a huge impact on this world. You know, this world may view brothers as insignificant. You know, that's my big $10 word for the day. You know, the world may view brothers as insignificant. But on the grand spectrum of things, the Lord has given brothers the power to overturn worlds in the form of this word and the word being preached. You know, that's the power of word, the word. You know, we understand that words have power in itself. That's how the worlds were framed. You know, the scriptures speak about how through the word of the Lord, you know, things were created. Before there was creation, came the word of the Lord, the command from Yahweh to create. So the word has, especially the word of the Lord, has astronomical amount of power measured. And the Lord has allowed us to tap into that power, you know, now. First through the Spirit being returned unto us and the understanding being returned unto us. And through that understanding, that grasp of prophecy in the Bible, we've been able to topple governments. You know, the scriptures speak about how through the faith of a mustard seed, we shall move mountains. You know, those mountains really go into governments. And the word of the Lord has transformed this very same government that we've been a part of our whole lives here in Babylon. Babylon itself has been shifted because of the word of the Lord, man. The reason why they are implementing these different policies to take away human rights in itself, because that's really what it's all leading to. It's leading to the stripping of human rights, so-called human rights. You know, because the so-called white man wants everybody under his jurisdiction. He wants everybody under his control. through that RFID microchip, and through, different technologies being integrated within your biology. So the reason why these different policies are being implemented, to strip away people's human rights and to strip away people's autonomy, is for the sole fact that this word being preached. It speaks about that in the book of Jeremiah, how the word is entered into the gates of the nobles, and now they trembling. They trembling at the word of the Lord, because the word of the Lord has power to topple governments, just like it did in Babylon, just like it did in Nineveh, all right, just like it did in the Medo-Persian Empire, just like it did in the Roman Empire, all right. The word of the Lord has power to topple governments and to transform worlds in itself. And we've been able to tap into that power, and that's why the victory is imminent. The victory is imminent, and that's been something that's heavy on my mind. The victory that's coming, for the testimony of Yahushua. Hey, Shalom, Yahweh Shem Yahushua Barakatah. Shalom, Azari. Shalom, bro. Yahweh Shem Yahushua Barakatah. Hey, but that's been something that's been heavy on my spirit lately, man. The victory that's getting ready to commence upon the planet Earth. Not just speaking about Yahushua's return, but before that. Before Yahushua's return, when the Lord moves through brothers, in the different vessels. All right? That victory is coming even before then. The power to put the enemy to flight. The power to shoot forth the Lord's power through our vessels. Lord willing, we're the elect. Those type of feats are coming. Super strength, the ability to evade, transportation, like what happened with Habakkuk. These different powers are getting ready to manifest themselves. And the victory is getting ready to be got from the Lord's elect. Even now in these perilous times, in this failing economy, brothers are excellent, man. Brothers are doing excellent. Brothers really can't complain. You go, you catch your different ordeals through the spirit, which is all at this point in time, we truly understand why we catch ordeals and tribulations. It's all for the refining, and the building of our character and our identity in Yahushua. It's all for us to be able to embody the word of the Lord. But you catch your little 1-2s here and there, but then the Lord, the Lord really show you that He got this, man. And brothers are straight. Niggas is losing their jobs. They jumping off bridges, putting the 12 gauge to their mouth. Gathering the family up, crashing out. Stressed out. Anxiety is at an all-time high. Meanwhile, brothers are even killed. We're even killed. Because we understand, this whole storm that came by, this whole, ice blizzard, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's just another judgment from Yahweh Shem Yahushua. You have people stressing and losing their minds over what they're going to do. But brothers ultimately knew that they was going to be all right. All through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. But the victory is getting ready to be got, man. Victory is imminent. We truly have nothing to worry about. Whether we live or whether we die in Yahushua, it's all a victory. It's all a victory. And that understanding is being perfected within us right now, as we speak. I had a little dream last night, man, where, J.K. got snatched up in the middle of the night and sent to a internment camp. And in the internment camp, as soon as I walked through the doors, I seen other believers. And as soon as I walked through the door, everybody just started smiling, smiling at each other, that is, and they all had us in a single line, ranked up, single file line. We had lines here, lines there, lines, just stacked up next to each other, lines of people. And in the line, you had guards coming by with guns. And as they were coming by with guns, brothers were tormenting them. Brothers are tormenting them, mocking them, laughing in their face, you know, mocking, laughing in their face, really with no care of what the enemy can do to them, man. You know, and Lord willing, you know, that type of faith will be placed on us here in these latter days. The faith to mock in the face of the enemy, to laugh at calamity, you know, to be at peace in Yahushua, you know, in our judgment and the will of the Lord over our lives. Lord willing, a fervent spirit, you know, an even more fervent spirit is placed upon us in that day, man. But right now, it's looking good. Like the Elder Yahshua said, it's looking good. Because right now, brothers are showing beautiful levels of faith. You know, exemplifying beautiful levels of faith through their own perspective, trials and tribulations. You know, and they're bringing that to the body, that experience, that understanding that comes after it. They're bringing that to the body. And as a result, the body is being strengthened. The body is growing. You know, the ministry is, and brothers individually are abounding in the spirit of Yahushua, man. And it all speaks to Romans the 8th chapter. It says that we are more than conquerors in him that loved us. You know, we are conquerors through the spirit and power of Yahweh Yahushua. You know, a conqueror is somebody or something, somebody that is able to overtake and overcome. And through the spirit, we've been given the gift of faith in order to overcome our present obstacles, you know, and the present enemies, you know, that we face. The chiefest one being Esau, even the so-called white man. But, you know, I could go on and on all day, man. I just want to bring, you know, this quick impromptu, you know, Lord, when this is edifying unto you elect. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushua, Bahasham Rukakudash, and double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in grace and peace. To you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. And before I close out officially, man, keep in mind that the victory is at hand. All right, have a healthy expectation. All right, in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, expect greatness. Expect the power of the Lord to be manifest in the earth. Expect the Lord to intervene. You know, because He is. We have a lot to look forward to, bros, for real. We have a lot to look forward to. Tomorrow is even greater for us than it is for our enemies. Always keep that in mind. That shalom. Stay up.